Welcome back and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Now we want to dive into a conversation on corruption, specifically the fight against corruption. Where are we at, especially since we've been seeing a renewed fight against corruption from President William Ruto? But many are saying it's all talk. So today we ask, are we walking the talk? And joining me for this particular conversation, to my far right, we have Ishmael Nyaribo, an advocate. Next to him, we have Winnie Ogutu, who is a programs officer at the Institute of Social Accountability. And of course, next to her, we have Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch. Before we even get into this conversation, let's just listen into what President William Ruto has been saying when it comes to corruption.
Mtu yeyote ambaye anapanga ati kuiba pesa ya serikali, my friend, tafuta nchi ingine. Mimi nimewaambia hawa wakora wote, wezi wote, matapeli, nimesema hawa watu mambo yao ni tatu. Si ndio? Either wahame Kenya, ama waende jela, ama waende mbinguni. Hakuna dawa ingine. Sijui kama naelewana. Mnataka mtu akuja aibe pesa yetu hapa? Mimi nalete pesa hapa 500 million inapotea. Nalete 1 billion inapotea. 500, kwani sasa? Hapana. Hapana, ikai namna hiyo. Sijui kama tumeelewana. Mmekubali wezi wote tuwafukuze? Maneno ya wezi ni ngapi? Wahame Kenya, waende jela, ama waende mbinguni. Maneno hiyo imeishia hapo. Maneno ya e-procurement. Kuna watu wengi wamezoea kandarasi ya ukora. Kitu ya shilingi 2 tunanunua shilingi 10 kama serikali kwa sababu ya procurement ya ukora hapo, ya quotation na nini na nini. Tumesema tunaweka e-procurement. Mimi najua kuna resistance. Procurement officers, accounting officers hawataki hiyo maneno kwa sababu wanataka kuendelea na ukora ya zamani. And we are going to implement e-procurement. There is no going back. Any official who is not ready to work with us in e-procurement, they can as well leave. Waondoke kwa serikali, waende watafute kazi ingine.
All right, that is President William Ruto on different occasions talking about corruption. And it's good to note that he has been pointing fingers, not at parliament, not at judiciary. And we're asking ourselves, even as we point fingers, where does the buck stop? All right, let's start this conversation. Perhaps, Winnie, since you're the lady, we can start with you. I mean, looking at what has been said, it's now 3 years into this government. We've talked about corruption day in, day out, with no action. From where you sit, is it really a good strategy? Are we strategic in this fight against corruption?
We are not strategic because first of all, we have institutions that work on corruption, like the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which is working on fighting corruption. It's not the work of the president to fight corruption. So it should not be a presidential-led initiative. We should leave the institutions that are mandated to fight corruption to do it. Once the executive takes the lead, then we lose the power. Yeah.
Okay, that's a really good place to start. Once the executive takes the lead, we lose power. Osido, coming to you. I mean, picking up from there, and the fact that she mentioned EACC. Just recently, we saw the arrest of Bomet Governor Hilary Barchok, not forgetting former Governor Wangamati. But people are saying, you know what, we've seen this before. Where are the prosecutions? You know, are we just doing it for show?
Thank you so much, Ashley. Indeed, there's a big problem in terms of marrying the for show bit of it so that we are seen to be doing our work and delivering on what we are supposed to deliver on, particularly given the powers and authorities given by the Constitution of Kenya, and marrying that with political goodwill, which is where I believe His Excellency the President is speaking from, and then juxtaposing that with what I would call public trust and confidence, that indeed we are at the top of fighting corruption, and the levels of believability, or what otherwise I would call indicators for the war on graft. So if you are to put all these things together, I do not think that we are doing very well, because Kenya is prided with very good laws. In fact, we have very many people coming, our friends and other jurisdictions coming to learn from Kenya and even benchmarking, and sometimes even borrowing from our laws. But if you look at whether or not those laws are working for us, then the question around interagency engagement comes up, which is why we will see governors being arrested, we will see people being arraigned in court, sometimes with very hefty bails. But whether that really amounts to the confidence that the public should have on the war against corruption, I think is the biggest question. Okay. Not, of course, to belabor the point that these laws that we have and are very good should be able to bolster that public trust. But I think that there is a bit of a gap in terms of what political goodwill should be able to excite, which in my view, the president has done well, because from what videos we have watched and his narrative, he is almost saying that I want to be at the front of this war. But whether or not Kenyans will believe him, based on his past, his present, and many things that I've also said about him, is another question around then as the head of executive, how do you work with other agencies, which also include constitutional commissions, like the ones that Winnie has mentioned, EACC, among others. There are powers given to them by the Constitution, the EACC Act, among others, and indeed how they engage also with other agencies like the Directorate of Public Prosecution, Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, among others. So we need to be very careful to look at where the gap therefore lies, because so that we avoid, throwing blame of non-performance or distrust of public, we need to interrogate where the gaps are. Because again, even as you mentioned governors, we have 9 sitting governors that we are told are under the EACC radar. We have governors who have served enough time, but with cases that are more than the term of office that they have served. So where really is this gap? And I think that in my gap, in my view, the gap is not in political goodwill, because the president is saying there are 3 things, mambo ni matatu. So kama ni jela, there are people who are in charge of the jailer, and there's a process through which you get to the jailer. Kama ni binguni, I don't know what the president means by waende binguni, but there is also somebody who is in charge of taking people to heaven. Yeah. Na kama ni kuhama Kenya, there is also a process through which you can choose to hama Kenya and go to another country. You know? So all these things, in my view, present an excuse,
Okay.
Yes.
From what you've said, number one, you think there is political goodwill.
I think so.
As a Kenyan, distance yourself from your position right now. Yeah. As a Kenyan, do you have faith that there is political goodwill?
As a Kenyan, based on conversations, like what the president is saying, in my view, I think, I wouldn't trust that there is political goodwill, but I think that there is political goodwill. Okay. Of course, the thought around the existence of political goodwill is also curtailed by lack of ability for that goodwill to excite proper action. Okay. So that, for example, if DCI fails to do their work, the president can ask, because he has the power to protect the Constitution, so he can ask DPP or DCI, ile mambo ya ufisadi nimesikia, excuses, what is going on? So that is what he reports to the people to bolster that political goodwill. But there is a difference in saying that you are showing political goodwill, but there is no action, because people are either afraid of what you will say, or how you will behave, or how the president will communicate or talk the following day. Because I think the president has also suffered from mixed signals and mixed narratives in the past, especially on this war against corruption.
All right, Nyaribo, coming to you, even as you give your opening remarks, this EACC issue has been talked about day in, day out. And many people are saying, you know what, they are the weakest link. Just the other day, a few weeks ago, President William Ruto did name a multi-agency team that was supposed to spearhead this war on graft. But the courts halted that process, saying that it is usurping the role of EACC. So then, from where you sit, because EACC has been saying that they need powers to prosecute, perhaps is them getting the prosecutional powers the way to go? Would it bolster the war against corruption?
Now, thank you so much for welcoming me here. You see, we didn't define what is corruption, but we make an assumption that we understand corruption, and therefore we drove straight to the President's remarks and the EACC. But just for the benefit of your viewers, in my humble view, from my perspective, I don't want to be philosophical or moral values here, but it should be understood that both Quran and Bible have condemned us human beings to being a very corrupt, decayed humanity. And that our incapacity to understand righteous values and higher values of human society is what is eating into all societies, including Kenya. So what is EACC doing? You know, sometimes EACC will come up and look for Osido, and then Osido dodges, goes behind Rao or behind the president, and then EACC shies away and comes to look for somebody else. And they do that cycle for a whole year. They arrest this governor, that governor, and then some court order comes in, and then nothing happens. So I think that within the mandate they have, EACC is trying its level best. There is very little they can do if the head of state has actually already shouted that, or backed and said, people will go to heaven or they have to go to jail. Then when they try to arrest them, they get maybe a memo or a phone call from another quarter, maybe either of the president or somebody who is in the corridors of power says, bana hiyo maneno enda pole pole. So corruption is very intertwixed in our society, and everyone seems to pretend that it is that one who is corrupt. And we actually seem to pretend as a nation that the only corrupt person is Kasongo, if I may use those terms. We as a nation purport to say that the president is the most corrupt. That's where the problem begins, according to me, because if you can't help me to perform, I mean, honestly, if you think that, you know, everybody's saying he is corrupt so that they can hide their own corruptness. That's how I understand it.
But
you can see he's saying...
the fish that's rotting from the head, right?
That is, again, a good way to hide behind the facts from my perspective. Look at what I'm saying.
Okay.
He is now saying we will bring e-procurement. In e-procurement, I hear that, and I apologize for if I make any mistakes, it's my mistakes, any errors, but I hear in that program, you are supposed to seek for a tender. Then when the payment comes, once you upload your details during the time of tendering, and they are already uploaded to the internet, internet banking, the IB, then the payment will directly come to you. They will not be siphoned nowhere. So, and this is what I've been routing for, even in the judiciary. If you could have specific standards for what you call, for example, discretion, then a judge cannot imagine that I can receive 100,000 or 1 million here and connive with whichever party, and then I give him the type of justice I want. So the head of state is trying to say that we don't want a situation where somebody knocks your door, you keep him out there for 3 hours, and then when you see him, he's exasperated, and he only thinks about giving you money. So, and then he is also saying that there are people in government who are resisting that system. So who are these? So when we always come up and say, it is the president, it's whatnot, I agree that we must put the president at check and accountable. But we have to look at ourselves. As somebody says, the one who gives and the one who receives are both corrupt. So I think it's a malady, it's a decay that we need to reflect on genuinely. Because when you look at who is in EACC now, is still a Bishop. Yeah. Oginde. Is he giving corruption definition according to his calling as a bishop? No, before we come to economics and finances, let us look at the reality. How is it that citizens are not so disciplined so as to evaluate a corruption situation as a disease and then move away? Why? Because genuinely we are corrupt. If you look at Christology standards, we cannot measure up to the righteousness needed to lead the people correctly. And that is why when the president is corrupt, the people around him should help him to walk away rather than using intellectual manipulation to assist him so that they also can steal. Okay. So the problem for me, you asked whether EACC can resolve this. It's deeper
than actually just the head of state saying that. I think actually, look at the day he was being sworn in. He actually said excitedly that the moment I put my Bible down, I'll make sure. You can look at it both ways. He hasn't done that. That is true. He hasn't done it. Is it solely because there are people, you are in a group, you're fighting in a race, I mean in a ring, and they're laughing at you just because you have tipped and you've fallen down maybe. So have the people around the president assisted him to fight corruption? If you ask me, the answer is a bold no.
Okay.
So I'm not bothered if you just want to point out to one individual, but because most of us actually are using the president to clean ourselves. Everybody's, the moment you see Ruto passing Kasongo, and even the guys who are shouting this Kasongo, who are us, have our own level of decay. So what is the end game then? When can we say, okay, we all can't? What he has said about e-procurement for me is a game changer. Okay. If he can do that, not only in procurement, but in every other state system, state departments, they should have systems that, for example, going to get a passport. It is easier today because it's online. So unless now guys in government stop doing this thing of resisting corruption and calling us, look at the counties. I mean, you go to the county, you do business, okay, and for some reason, payment becomes, an endless pain. So we must agree that yes, the president has faulted, but we cannot all try to clean ourselves as though now we are the people from heaven. And since I am on this issue, Ashley, Kalonzo Musyoka, Fred Matiang'i, Eugene Wamalwa, talk of any of these candidates who are planning to come to office, they will face this problem as long as they've not understood this basic principle, that citizens in Kenya, because of democracy, are not people you can just push around because of democracy. So for you to really now start to beat corruption, you must get back to systems.
Okay. And Winnie, coming to you, yes, he's mentioned a few issues. He's talked about the procurement system. I want us to circle back. Yes, the government did deny this, but let's not forget about the issue of e-citizen. Yes, it says that, no money was lost through e-citizen, but this was a platform that was meant to streamline issues from services to payment and everything. A few months down the line, what were we told? Money was lost. So is what he's saying, is it justified? And I do agree that corruption starts from the bottom. I mean, Kenyans even call it chai. So it starts from us, I get it. But then just because it starts from us, does it absolve them of the responsibility?
When you say money is lost, it is lost where? That's the question. Because you can't keep on saying, I will deal with the corrupt officials. Who are they? Yeah. It's high time we get to know who are the corrupt individuals. But if you just say blanketly that I will deal with the corrupt officials, some will go to heaven, then that will not help us. Coming to the issue of us saying, because when you look even at the Auditor General report, she keeps on saying that we have lost money in this, we have lost money in this, but it just becomes the end of the story. So we have to start from when the Auditor General gives us the report, let us accept that report. But sometimes you find that she's being fought back. And the big people in the government are saying she's lying, that is a false report. Why can't we first accept the report, then go deeper into that report to find out where is this money lost and who is responsible for that, who is accountable? That is where we have not reached as the government. We highlight that this is lost, but getting to catch the people who have stolen the money is now the problem is.
In your point of view, how do we get there?
Okay, how I get there, of course we have, just as I mentioned, let us give the authorities, the institutions that are involved, the power to do its work. Let those who have been involved in corruption be arrested, arraigned in court, and even be given penalty for stealing the government's money. But you find that if there are powerful people in the government involved, what will happen? They'll be covered up, and somehow that story will just get lost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Osido, corruption fights back. from what I'm getting from her point. Corruption fights back. Here, yes, we do have institutions, but at the same time, let's not forget that we've not seen these institutions being weaponized by the same politicians. So how do we get to that point where we have independent institutions doing their mandate independently?
That's a very good question, Ashley, and it is because we have in this Constitution of Kenya 2010 a chapter that is called Chapter 15, where we have all those independent commissions. And those independent commissions are largely or generally called independent institutions. But if you look at the architecture of our governance framework and even the system, these institutions are independent but also interdependent, which means that, for example, EACC cannot operate on its own. It relies on other institutions like DCI, like DPP, and all of them rely on other institutions, for example, Parliament, to be able to appropriate resources that go towards their functions and mandates. Now, if you look at the manner in which, for example, the budget of Kenya is made so that these institutions have resources, which a lot of times is where we see the stifling, they also rely on somebody else. So that, for example, the CS Treasury will be playing a very big role to determine in his budget statement how much money goes to EACC. So regardless of how much defense EACC might want to put to the people who wield the power to decide the budget, their independence is taken away. And we have even seen the judiciary a number of times, for example, quote unquote, crying over stifling of financial resources that are supposed to capacitate or make it able to do its work. So the independence of institutions in the context of Kenya is a very hard nut to crack. It is hard because of many reasons. So that, for example, one, we must fix the political culture. The political culture, for example, that the chair of EACC serves a 3-term of 6 years. Is that correct, Wakili?
Yes.
But if you look at that term, it comes inside an electoral year, so that post-election, you only stay for 1 term. So the president of the day or the party of the day would really be working so hard to get somebody who will be doing everything that we are saying here. That you can be able to be called from Singapore when you are attending a meeting, for example, and be told, can you direct your director of investigations to drop that file, you know? And it's because EACC is independent in the sense that it has the requisite institutions. For example, it has policemen that work under the commission. So they can come and arrest Kevin Osido in my house or wherever I am without going through the IG. You understand?
Yeah.
But that those powers of arresting stop somewhere. They stop at the point where you've taken me to EACC, the underground jail, and the moment I have my phone call, I call my lawyer or I call a few supporters who come and make a lot of noise there and say, Kevin Osido is our thief, you have arrested him. And then my party leader shows up with, for example, JIC, if I could use that as an example, or some sanitizer, you know.
And sanitizers.
And then I am sanitized and the case is on, or I go to court and then I'm given cash bail or a bond, which is a quarter of the money that I am alleged to have stolen. So I'll be there laughing and saying, hey, mi nangoja tu nitolewe hapa. In fact, I'll be even bragging and making phone calls. Muko aje hapo, ushanipikia ugali na kuku na samaki ninakuja, you know.
A true Kenyan.
And those are the things that we see, you know, how corruption is being fought in this country. But all this is happening behind the independence of an institution that is supposed to do its work. So the interferences from the political aspect is a revolving circle that will go into which officers are sent to Siaya, for example, to go and check on what corruption face, or are sent to Lamu. Wakili is talking about, counties and payment issues. It is that independence that will determine which officer goes where. But the interference and how it comes begins to change things on the way. You want to fly to Lamu, there is no money for you to board a flight. The person that you are going to arrest, for example, has enough money, even in their cash, petty cash, to do anything that they want to do. And Kenyans have heard the stories that you go arresting a governor or arresting whoever you want to arrest, and even before you get there, already there are M-Pesa messages flowing. So the independence of institutions, in my view, is curtailed by other factors that many times those institutions do not have a lot to do about.
Okay.
From EACC itself to DPP and even to DCI. But yet the officers who work there are extremely qualified. They have the skills, they are properly trained, even to check fake notes, etc. But all those things, the investment that Kenyans know about our institutions, do not pay back because of the degree of interference that I think really beats that culture of independence in our institutions.
Okay, Nyaribo, even as you add in to whatever Osido was saying, the judiciary has been accused by the president for being a haven for those who are corrupt. Do you think perhaps we need a court that is specifically just set aside to deal with corrupt issues?
We have.
Do we?
We have. We have anti-corruption courts
Oh,
specifically set aside
sorry,
for...
my mistake.
Yeah, that is okay. That's okay. Yeah, maybe it should be strengthened.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't hear much about it actually
Clearly.
because
Yeah.
it's probably not very strengthened. But we have a very strong arm of the anti-corruption court that looks at all corruption matters. And you remember the former deputy president castigating a judge who is in anti-corruption court, Justice Minor, that time.
Okay.
So, yeah, we do have that one, but probably it needs to be consolidated and empowered more. I want to say that we must always criticize our president to enable him to work at higher vibrations.
Okay.
This I agree with civil society, advocates all over the country. But there is one, I think, one aspect we must agree, at least on systems. You see, if there are no systems, Ashley, look at the case of Obado in Migori. We are only now realizing that there was 88 million here, there was 15 million, there was 8 million here. How come there is no system that could detect that when he was practically in office? That's my issue. Look at counties now today, we are being, and by the way, the people who are opposing this most are governors. Why? Because governors feel like they're small gods. I mean, they actually feel like they're presidents within that county. So they kind of, with impunity, dictate how the finance department is working. That's why they, they just pick the people they want to work in those departments, so that they're able to siphon 2 million, 200 million, 300 million without notice. Because there's no system, actually. People just come with some papers. And if you listen to the president, and by the way, we all know the history of our president. I mean, he says he's been selling chicken. He mentioned something that very interesting. He talked about quotations. That's the head of state. Why is he? That's a small matter for, not even for anti-corruption. That's for the accounting clerks to see what. So he understands that is where the rot begins. So he's saying, we don't want, some clerk to say, this cup, yes, we'll allow that you buy it at 16,000, and the cup is actually 16 shillings. So he's coming from somewhere, and I think the people who are opposing him are those people involved in government tendering and government business, and they must stop. Now, you're talking about 222, 222, the e-citizen number. Yeah. We were told during Uhuru Kenyatta's time, he said it. By the way, whatever the presidents speak, I personally believe. When the president here says this or that is happening, I actually believe, because unless he's being cynical or mischievous openly, he is a consumer of raw information. The president, by morning, if he wants to know, will know how I left my house, how I came here, what time I left here, where I went, he will know. That is the nature of a president. So when he brings in 222, and Uhuru used to tell us that he's losing 2 billion per day. Are we crazy? Per day, 2 million shillings. How much are we losing in the 222? So this is simple accounts, and somebody has to be honest and say, oh, anyway. Now we can see, now also today, we are able to tell that about 127 billion was actually misallocated. It did not go to a government account. Why? Because there is 222. In Uhuru's time, he never said where the 2 billion went. He simply said we are losing 2 billion every day. If you ask him, by the way, where did it go? Of course, through intelligence, he would know so and so must have picked it. So we are better off working with systems to know that in the judiciary, when you go to court 7, for that matter, Justice XYZ, the system can show, and we do have some systems today at least, judiciary has improved. You can be able to see that this judge stays with the file minimum 7 years. And he will never make a judgment until 12 years, 13 years. So you don't need anybody. In fact, just public reviews will be like, sorry, this is a judge with some other interests. So let us support on this particular one or anything else. I would be very happy to criticize the president, but on systems. So that it is so easy for you, Ashley, when you get a note from immigration for that matter, if that's what you wanted, that your passport request has been received, kindly contact your nearest Huduma center in 7 days, failure to which, kindly send us an email. That is what democracies are all about. I mean, that is why Singapore, we keep talking about, that's why Malaysia, that's why US are going ahead. The reasons why people oppose these systems is because they just want to size you up when you go to the office. They look at you, they keep thinking, this person, she doesn't look nice, I don't like her. And so you are making people's whimsical moods to determine when you will get your passport. This is extremely wrong. If we implement now, you know, the National Police Service has implemented systems whereby most of these, you know, police services around here in town, you go and they actually enter your data right there. Your OB is produced right there. No police officer is allowed to keep admiring you recklessly, I mean, stupidly. He is working there and then and discharges you to go. We as citizens now have things to do. So systems for me, tick for the head of state to bring that. I can never. That is the best way we can act. If you look at Law Society, for example, they have implemented systems. So if you apply for your practicing certificate today, you don't need to walk all the way to Getanga Road. You just see an email that we have received your application, please, and it is sent to your email. So I think these guys in government who are around the head of state who are mischievously trying to resist the system of e-procurement should actually, as soon as, I think Gen Z can help us to flush them out and actually jail them.
Let me add something.
Yeah, sure.
In fact, I really like the way he has ended the discussion that the Gen Z should take lead. I think it's high time, because you're talking about the solution, it's high time for the citizens to really be in the front line in fighting corruption. Because what we do also in the the Institute for Social Accountability, that is TISA, we work with citizens. We train them how to do budget tracking. We train them how to do social audits. We have a program called Tupigane na Ufisadi in the grassroots. And what we've seen is that the citizens are taking action. We are capacity building the civil societies in different counties like Uasin Gishu and Baringo. And what we've seen is that after we have trained them on how to track budgets on expenditure and management of the resources that were allocated for different initiatives, we are seeing people now taking the initiative to follow up and even engage the leaders so that the leaders can be accountable. So if we can also go back to the citizens, because we believe that the citizens, you know, the Constitution says we the people have the power. So the power is with the people. Let us take our power and follow this, follow the budgets through the tools that we have on, like social audits, budget tracking, things like that.
Okay.
I wanted to add something onto what my co-panelists have said, and to indicate that we should not overpraise the system. Like the system delivers, but there are certain lapses that take away the trust from the citizens. So that, for example, e-citizen is somebody cracks through and you steal money. Then what? Then we are saying, okay, it went to so and so. We can track that it went to so and so. So how do we recover it back? what is the action that is taken? What is the level of personal responsibility? How do we recover back that money? So that's one side of the beauty of the system. But I think as a country, actually, we have not done very well to make those recoveries. So that if X billion is lost and we can trace that it went to somebody, how do we get it back? What is that process? And what is the level of personal responsibility? So that that personal responsibility is an example for other people who would want to circumvent or crack through the system, number one. Number two, feedback mechanism. As she talks about TISA, at County Governance Watch, we have what we call the County Governance Index. It's a tool that assesses performance of counties. So we have the budget process, for example, and I have a report here which I'll talk about later. But part of what the CGI does is to demand a feedback. So you know, for example, that your passport should take X number of days, 7 days or 3 days or 4 days. There is a service charter, something written on the board. If you walk into these offices, you will see this is the number of days. What if it takes more days? Okay? How do I report that my driving license has taken more number of days? Or I walk into a health facility and the doctor has taken more number of hours, you know, as opposed to what is indicated on the service charter.
Yeah.
So that feedback mechanism must also be open and inbuilt into the system, so that as I'm seated there and I'm waiting for my passport, I can actually say that, yeah, I'm coming here for the 12th day, and that somebody can be honorable enough to call me and follow through. As Wakili is saying, you send an email. In most of these Huduma centers, you might not be able to send the email. But can we have a feedback and a USSD or a code or a dedicated SMS system, you know, a number where action can actually be taken and action is seen to be taken. And then finally is, of course, now to the judiciary, the number of years that a corruption case takes. Actually, we've been here with you many times, and some of us have proposed that corruption cases must have an end in them. BBI had proposed 2 years. BBI pengine ilienda binguni, but it never saw, those proposals never saw the day of light.
Yeah.
We were in Homa Bay the other day, and the PS in the office of the Attorney General, Mheshimiwa Judy Pareno, told us that there is a conversation that is going on now that any corruption case should take a maximum of 6 months. I am praying for that day, so that as we do the red carding, we can actually be able to, moving forward into the next election, show people that if you are not a good example of our Article 10 and Chapter 6 on national values and principles, you can actually be stopped from running office because you have questionable issues. If Kevin Osido has questionable issues, and I want to run for office, say Siaya Governor or Nairobi County Governor, and I have issues, that system should be able to stop me. So we have built very many systems, we have built very many processes, but I think there are lapses that we can still and we must do something about them. And one of those things that I think we have to do is a feedback and reporting mechanism.
Ashley, just so I don't take his mic, the point is bad systems may not be very good, but at least if we have systems, it's a beginning point for the country. If we have systems that have these errors here and there, it's good because you're able to know that actually this money was stolen by XYZ. In these other systems that these civil servants, senior civil servants are actually resisting, you don't know. You go into a room, you are like, I came here the other day and I made an application and I placed it here. The same people, they are there, but they're like, did you give me? Did you give me? I'm like, no, well, this is the office I brought. And you're trying to be nice. You're like, I think, you actually remember it was Osido, but you're like, I think it was, you know, one of you. And so this is what we must end. And I think on this one, I would be repeating that we must help restore our governance. And I think if Kenyans are serious, they should protest on this one. They should assist the president to protest against these senior civil servants who are actually opposing, systemizing, I mean, putting everything into systems. I think that way, even the world can see that we are serious about improving on corruption. But if we're just going to wait to to protest because somebody is sitting in the State House, that also is okay. I mean, it's our right. But I think we should also protest against civil servants who are sort of capturing, you know, the country into, you know, if you look at most of those people also, most of them are actually lazy. If you look at them, I mean, they learned something in university, they have refused to improve, and they are just opposing everything. Even when the computers came, they resisted. So for me, systems is actually where I would wanted to support the president. And then we can criticize him on all these promises and everything. I'm with everybody. But in terms of systems, I would like to know that when I go to a particular public office, I will spend 6 days. Now, you talked about corruption cases. Let's be very careful, because let's not do what presidential election petitions are doing to us. I mean, you expect to finish everything in 30 days. And it's difficult. The issue with corruption matters, especially pitting, you know, government offices. And you know, there are people in government offices who are literally sitting there spying on which document is going where to steal it, so that during the time of audit, it is not found. So by the time the government office collects all documents for the lawyer, because I have to ask questions. I have to ask according to the law. I mean, an accused person is innocent until proven guilty. So it is the government, and and this is not to blame it, but the nature of corporates and big entities, they need more days to actually collect papers from, you know, each department or each desk.
So what's your fair
I think
timelines?
I don't know. It would depend on experts once they check on timelines. But let's be Kenyans. I think 2 years would be somewhat reasonable. We have what we call small claims court. The timeline is 2 months. When you go to small claims, any case below 1 million, and it's not a, you know, a land matter, rent, and all that. These cases, when you go there, 60 days, you're supposed to have gone home with your decree. In some cases, this happens. But in some cases, I mean, documentation is not there. You have to, somebody's tooth is paining, they cannot see it, or the advocate will request for this and that. So it can extend up to 6 months. But the lawful, you know, stipulation is 2 months. So 6 months might be, no, it's 60 days for the small claims court. So 6 months might be tricky for the government to organize and prepare itself and then mount a strong case. But 2 years is actually fair enough.
Sure.
I just wanted to indicate that we have had a conversation with the ACC on this matter, and part of the argument is actually what you are saying. That, you know, there could be transnational corruption cases that you steal money from Kenya and you wire it somewhere else in some country. And that the processes to navigate and to get this going might be very difficult. The most important thing, again, takes us back to goodwill and public trust and confidence. Regardless of number of days and times, let people know the levels of those cases, so that we don't get people with very serious characters, a case going for 12 years, you know, 12 years. So what EACC, for example, indicated was basically that the process to be able to adjudicate over certain cases, and especially bringing in other agencies, like, for example, Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, among others. But I think that really goes back to the magnitude of the case. If you stash hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars in some country, it is something that you know, will be identified. And so the interest is in making connections that will also make it easy for Kenya to be able to deal with that matter. And then, two, inform Kenyans. Like, I am happy about the Governor Obado case, because now we are getting to know how much money we can lose. And those of us who are in devolution and are looking at county budgets and on source revenue and pending bills.
Be nice, Osido, be nice to Obado, because he's the only one being vilified. I mean, I know. When everybody is corrupt,
now I'm saying, as an example,
feeling so bad.
As an example, that we can now equate what corruption, actually the cost of corruption against what is out there. So if that is just one angle, how about all the other cases that have never been accomplished? And maybe EACC probably or Kenya has made very good recoveries, but we do not know how many kilometers of roads those monies that have been recovered can be able to do. So it's basically about feedback, communication, and of course timelines around the kind of cases that we have.
Because we have like 5 minutes left, and even as you give your point, what is, from where you see it, what is the single most important action that as a country we need to do to ensure that we, win this fight once and for all?
Okay. First, let me just say something before I mention that. Sure. I respond to that. Corruption in Kenya is not something that we can address after it happens. It seems like corruption in Kenya is a very systematic thing and it's a premeditated. When we were introducing SHA, we thought then all our problems would be sorted. But what are we seeing right now? We are seeing hospitals that are not even existing receiving funds. So that it means, in a nutshell, that if we are to fight corruption, it calls for transparency and very strong accountability mechanism. Yes.
Okay. Who should I go next, Nyaribo or Nyaribo? Because you talked about the issue of the fact that we are part of the problem as a country, and it's a culture. Everywhere we go, there has to be exchange of money or favors for us to get there. So from where you see it, systems, as Osido said, might work, might not work. But this culture starts from us.
Yeah. I think we have to be polite with ourselves as a country. I mean, once we have known that we have a sweet tooth for this, just telling us to putting a what you call a blade and making sure that nothing happens it has proved that it is very difficult. So we need, if we need to be polite to each other and move forward, this is only a starting point. And I think the president needs to do amnesty for, not the president, as a country we need to give each other amnesty, those who have been on this and that. So that, we always have waivers at the end of the year and all that. So I think Kenya should not be so particular that, Uhuru stole ABC and Kibaki this and Jomo Kenyatta. And so we must clean all this, all these injustices. They call them historical. If you start to do that today, in the strict sense, I think we will take the country backwards. So in my view, we should be polite and start at improving our systems from where we are. Instead of thinking about what we did yesterday, it is never going to help no one.
Okay, Osido, I'll let you have the final say, but also talk about how, we talk about Singapore and the likes, but these people are intentional about good governance.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Are we? I don't think so, and I stand corrected.
No, you're right, because if you look at their culture, for instance, and by God's grace, I've been to Singapore, I've been to Malaysia, lived there, and seen how they do their things. And it's an inbuilt mechanism. You don't have to wait for you to be told that chewing gum and putting it under a table is wrong. It is a system that will lock you out as you walk out of the room. And if you look at that, it's basically inbuilt from their culture, from education, the kind of training that you go through, the kind of community that you live in. Is a community that will not kula mahindi, then you throw the cob somewhere waiting for somebody you imagine coming from maybe heaven, an angel to come and pick it. You basically just get to know that this is wrong, and because there's a dustbin there, you go and drop it there. It's a culture that is inbuilt, and as people grow up in the society, they are able to see. But their systems also work. That if you have a card, which is what you use to get into a taxi, when you tap it there, the door will open. When the car is full, you will see it. Not that it is a car park that you are going to pay, and then kando yake kuna parking boy who says, no, you're just going to buy milk and you come out. You don't have to pay. You nipatie tu hiyo sombili, and then I will watch over your car. It is an inbuilt culture. And that is part of what, for example, at County Governance, what we are trying to do with the County Governance Index. If you look at this thing, for example, part of what we do is to look at county websites. Access to information. How do citizens get to know about the county budget? As we speak today, there are counties whose budgets for 2025-26 are not even in the websites. The governor's social media page is much more robust and stronger and alive than the county website. How will citizens access information? That is also inbuilt in our Article 35. So there are small things that I think if we can be able to do as a country, we will be able to begin to send positive signals so that even when you appear into an office, somebody just gets scared of asking you for money. And it's because as a people, we have been there. 2002, 2003, Kenyans were arresting policemen and saying hatutakupea. Right now, we even use phone calls, but you're using your phone call, I mean your camera,
to record
and the police officer is also using his or hers to record you. So it is a back and forth, and it's about your word against my word.
Yeah. But you know those are systems, eh?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
But that's what we are saying. It's a system working to build a culture that is possible. And then finally is let every citizen do the much that you can be able to do wherever you are. Exercise accountability and your own personal volition to make this country better through one tool that we use called the TAPI. Exercise transparency, accountability, prevention, you exercise awareness, you exercise education, and then you enforce. So the systems, the systems of government that are supposed to enforce, you enforce. To educate, you educate. Exercise transparency and accountability, both for the duty bearer and also for the right holder.
All right, I think that's a really good place to end it. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady. You know, at least today we had a gender balance. You should be happy. But anyway,
and congratulations, especially for this late night lady showing up.
Yeah, you should do this more often.
Yeah, sure.
Just with them, because you're good. You already have a rapport, so I should just spare you them, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Kevin
each
Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch. Winnie Ogutu, who is the Programs Officer, TISA, which is the Institute for Social Accountability, and Ishmael Anyaribu, an Advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for making time and for you for being part of our broadcast. I am Ashley Mazuri. On behalf of Jesse Rogers, Pretty Janet, and the entire team, have a good night.
Happy birthday KTN, mzidi kutuwekea Club Kiboko, especially ile ya my school.
Mnapo celebrate 35 years, keep it up, muendelee hivyo na tunawashukuru sana.
Turning 35 is not a joke. Wishing you all the best.
Happy 35th birthday, and we are looking forward to his more birthdays.
Happy birthday KTN, tunawapenda, tunawaenzi na muendelee kutupasha kila siku.
Vipindi vyetu tunavipenda sana. Muendelee hivyo hivyo tu.
Muendelee hivyo hivyo, kazi mzuri.
Tunafurahia kumkutana 35 years old. Tunafurahia sana na